All right, we're back on Monday night. Excited. We're going to be tomorrow night. I don't know if you guys saw this or not, but we're going to be on with Abs for Good Evening Crypto. Super excited about that. Be good to see him and Johnny Crypto over there. Used to be Good Morning Crypto. It was last time I was on the show, and now they've moved to Good Evening Crypto. So it's going to be, I believe, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central tomorrow. So hopefully we'll see you guys over there for that. Excited to get with them. Offshoot over there from Warrior Academy, Warriors Rise. You know how they are, which is good. I like Coach JV and all that he has to say. Lots of good stuff. So I don't know if you guys have been living under a rock or not, but I've been talking about the reverse carry trade for a long time. And it's looking like things are about to play out here. So we have a lot of macroeconomic events that were right on the precipice of taking place. And alongside that, I think you're going to see some volatility in the market. Hopefully you're prepared for that. If you're in crypto, you should be. That's the whole point of being invested in this asset class. There's a lot of downside risk, but there's also hundreds, if not thousands of percents of gain to be made in very short periods of time. So if you're new here, appreciate you checking out the channel. And I always like to get a few things out of the way. Sometimes I forget, but we'll go ahead and do them now. We'll get the disclaimer and then some other stuff. So nothing here is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you need financial advice, I would highly suggest that you seek out a licensed professional. If you need one of those, you can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners, which is a subsidiary of Digital Ascension Group, and they can help you. They can give you financial advice on your digital assets in your portfolio, help you build an exit strategy if that's something you want to do, or provide you ways to be able to generate returns on your digital assets. If you're accredited, and then we're going to have some other stuff in the near future for the non-accredited people. There are some minimums and things that do apply there, but we would love to work with you if you're interested in that. The other thing that I have to say for my attorneys is that my opinions are my opinions. They are not the opinions of Digital Ascension Group or Digital Wealth Partners. And now that we have that out of the way, the other thing that I always forget to say is please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. It does help the algorithm. We're over here on TikTok, we're on YouTube, we're on X, and we're on Facebook tonight. We'll get into the Q&A after we get through some of the macro and the fun stuff that I'm sure you guys are looking at. So again, back to the reverse carry trade. We've got bond yields in Japan sky high. They're the highest prices, some of which we haven't seen since the late 90s on the longer term bond yields there in Japan. So what does that mean? Why does that matter? Well, if you were around 20, 25 years ago, the Bank of Japan had 0 interest rates. Effectively free money if you're borrowing from the Bank of Japan. So people borrowed money in yen. They took that yen and they invested in stock markets. The returns weren't that great in the Nikkei at the time. So a lot of people, and you couldn't get any yield on their bonds. So they would take that yen, swap it for dollars, swap it for euros, swap it for other stuff, and put it to work in other markets all around the world. Tens of trillions of dollars have been borrowed from the Bank of Japan over the past 25 years. And a lot of that is going to have to be repaid in a very short order here if bond yields continue to rise. That means that their currency is going to rise in value against the US dollar and other currencies. And in addition to that, the interest rates that people are paying on these variable rate loans, and when they're refinancing these loans, their interest rates are going up. And sometimes, if where that money is invested isn't generating the returns that are required to make a sustainable trade viable, then it's better to just go ahead and close those trades, exit those positions, swap those dollars or whatever currency you're selling into back to yen and repay those loans. We started to see this happen last year in August of 2024. We had 13% down in the S&P in one day. It's a big drop. And that was only about $2 trillion worth of liquidity being sucked out of the market. What's about to happen is going to be much, much worse. We are likely going to see the Bank of Japan have to aggressively raise interest rates. If they're going to move more than 25 or 50 bips, they've held interest rates since August of last year. They've not moved 1 bip or any percentage to the upside on their interest rates for their, Fed funds rate there at the Bank of Japan. But if there's inflation in their economy, and we think that's going to happen because of oil, we'll see if I'm right about that or not. I think I am. They're going to have to aggressively raise rates. And when they do that, you're going to see people liquidating across all markets. It's not going to matter where you have your money: gold, real estate, stocks, bonds. It's all going to be a repricing event globally as that liquidity gets sucked out of these markets, crypto included, Bitcoin included. I think we're already starting to see some of this on Bitcoin. We've seen outflows on the ETFs. Bitcoin back to 92,000 last time I looked at it. It's at 0% on the year. People that bought Bitcoin January 1 and hold it today are up 0%. So, and the rest of the market's kind of that way too. I think XRP's something similar. So actually, I think it was actually 1 year ago. So it's not year to date. So if people bought Bitcoin a year ago today, they're back to even on their Bitcoin investment. XRP would still be up like 110% if you bought it a year ago today. So, you guys know where my allegiances lie. Also, a lot of interesting stuff coming out with Epstein. I talked about this earlier this year, and I've touched on it a few times over the past year. I had a tweet that asked, what would be the outcome if Bitcoin were tied to Epstein in some way? Well, it's coming out that might be a thing, and potentially, tomorrow we have the House Bill 589. Sure, interesting, that number that they're going to be voting on to release the Epstein documents to the public. So we'll get to see who's involved, how they did it, what's been going on, whether Tether or Bitcoin were involved with that. And I put a tweet out the other day. I don't know that they'll delist the Bitcoin ETFs, but if they, I don't know, international money crimes and other things, maybe that alone will have some effect on Bitcoin. Likely could. It'd be unprecedented for them to delist the ETFs based upon that. It'd have to do with sanctions or something else. We do have precedent for that. When Russia was sanctioned by the U.S., we saw them, both BlackRock and VanEck delist Russia ETFs that they had available at the time. So if, I don't know that the U.S. government could sanction Bitcoin or could sanction Tether. I mean, it's possible. That's happened before with Tornado Cash. They did sanction that protocol, and anybody that interacted with it was subject to anti-money laundering, and those wallets were then associated with that and couldn't transact here domestically in the U.S. They were flagged. Are they going to go that far? I don't know. Probably not. But it'd be interesting if they did. You'd see huge outflows of the Bitcoin ETFs and a rotation into some of these other ETFs. We have a Solana staking ETF that's going to be launched tomorrow, and it looks like we're going to get an XRP amplified ETF, an MXRP ETF that's going to go live tomorrow. That's going to pay you 3% dividends on top of your investment in XRP through that ETF. So that's exciting. I think a lot of people will want to take part in that. I think you're going to see huge inflows into XRP over the next 24 hours as people want to participate in those ETF or those spot products. Potentially Franklin Templeton going live tomorrow. We got a lot of people, looking like it might. There's some other conjecture out there that it may not. We'll have to see what actually, opens up tomorrow morning on the market. But a lot of action, a lot of things happening here. And again, all of this coincides with exactly what I've been talking about for a year and a half. I put a video out a year and a half ago called The Domino Theory, which is what I coined my thesis on how XRP would reach 3 and 4 digits. And a lot of those things that I talked about in that video a year and a half ago have just been checked off the list for the dominoes set up, ready to go. So when we do see this repricing, liquidity sucked out of the market, the reverse carry trade unwind, you're going to get U.S. Treasuries dumped onto the market. Japan is the U.S. Largest foreign debt holder of the U.S. at $1.6 trillion in U.S. Treasuries. Now that we have a stable coin bill here in the U.S., we do have domestic demand for, all of this stuff, all those treasuries as they flood onto the market. I think you're going to see tons of stable coins issued by large banks, maybe for internal operations, may not be so much for peer-to-peer payments. It could be for peer-to-peer payments alongside that. But I think the banks at scale will soak up those treasuries as they flow back here to the U.S. and it'll stabilize our bond market. But that leaves stocks and other markets still in a free fall. And with Bitcoin also, already it's just crossed the 50-day moving average. That's been a sign of a bear market for Bitcoin every single time. Do we see another, retrace for Bitcoin and a move higher? Absolutely possible. But because this time is different, I will say this market is very different than past cycles. However, if those things were to coincide like they have in the past, you are in a bear market for Bitcoin, and we should see the Bitcoin dominance fall as we see an alt season happen, as we see a rotation into these other ETFs as they get launched, because that's where the liquidity is that was pumped into Bitcoin this cycle. It was obvious that it was in the ETFs. Bitcoin hit an all-time high before the halving this go around, which is completely unprecedented, never happened before, and completely because of the ETFs and the inflows that we saw there after those were launched in early 2024. So there you have it. I think there's going to be a lot of things that transpire here before the end of the year. You guys know that I have my public bet with a gentleman out there that XRP will be $750 by the end of the year. We'll see if that takes place or not. Again, there's a lot of catalysts and things that are required to happen in order for that to take place. We got this person talking about ISO 20022 and the standard being put in November 22nd. Also interesting to see that messaging standard is also kind of lining up with all of these events here toward the end of November and early December. So I think Thanksgiving could be really good. And I think this could be a really good Christmas for a lot of people too. So have to see how things shake out here at the end of the year. Hopefully you are invested in certain digital assets that you have conviction on. Again, can't provide you financial advice, but here to answer any of the questions that you guys want to run down on the AMA tonight. So we'll go ahead and jump into it here. First up on the super chat, we've got some riddle stuff. We'll put the tinfoil hat on for you guys. This person says, Jake, are you under the idea that everything has been planned and coded for decades, gematria dates? Do you think XRP is on the same timeline as QAnon? Wow. Man, I look at all of that stuff. I take it all with a grain of salt. It's all out there. If you did want to run a PSYOP, you would put misinformation out alongside the real information and be able to plant those seeds in the public's mind. That's been going on for years. Today is QAnon day. I think it's 11/17. So we'll see, if something were to transpire in the next 24 hours here, that would be pretty interesting. But yeah, all of that math stuff makes a lot of sense to me. It's not something that I spend a ton of time on. I am working on everything that I have going on with my businesses every day, managing people, setting up partnerships, curating, building products for you guys to be able to generate return and yield on your assets inside of institutional custody at their digital wealth partners, building out relationships to be able to manage your wealth over the long term. Digital Ascension Group to structure your entities, your trust, your life insurance, all the other fun stuff that we do. So I don't have a whole lot of time any longer. I can tell you in 21 and 22, when I had a lot more time on my hands, I definitely entertained a lot of this stuff. And I think there's something to it. I think that there's definitely bits and pieces that have been put out over time that are accurate, and then a lot of it's hogwash too. But again, if you wanted to run a successful PSYOP, you would have both. You would have misinformation and real information involved in that. So as far as everything being planned and coded for decades, I do think that there's just been a lot of coincidences on this stuff, and for it to be playing out as timely as it is, with all of the circumstances that exist, it's hard for me to believe that there isn't at least some coordination on the back end of this. But again, I talk to a lot of people, like a lot of people, congressmen, three-letter agencies, large corporations, other financial institutions. Most people have no idea. They have no idea what's going on. They have no idea what's going to happen, even at very high levels. Or if they do a good job at like making me think that they don't. So most of them I have just pretty candid conversations with. So it's interesting to me that a lot of people think that everybody's in the know, and they just I can tell you they aren't. Most people have no idea what's about to take place here, but they will soon. Feel like things are about to move much faster now that we have the ETFs and everything else lining up here for the reverse carry trade to unwind and a liquidity crisis globally to happen. And then it's also interesting to me see that the Bank of Japan's bonds are held by the UK, and we hold a big chunk of those too here in the US. So there's counterparty risk. We're global at this point. The markets are global. There's such a commingling of assets across the world and diversification that people have tried to hedge against volatility and mitigate risk with uncorrelated bets. Unfortunately, there's so much leverage built up in the system at this point. I don't think anywhere is necessarily safe. But again, if I'm right about oil, again, not financial advice, that might be a good bet here in the short term. Work hard, play harder says, hopefully you won't lose your bet by $748. I do think I could lose it. I'm extremely confident in a 3-digit XRP this year, like very, very confident. 4-digit is going to require a couple more things to take place here in 2025. 2026, not a problem. But some things do have to line up in addition to a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about here in 2025 to get 4-digit XRP. But I'm really confident in 3 digits. So, worst case scenario, it's like 650 that I'll lose by. But hopefully it's a lot closer than that. And if I do lose, I'll be happy to pay up. My whole point of making that bet with the counterparty was that the people that he had also bet with, that he had taken XRP from, get paid back, irrespective of who wins the bet, whether I win or he wins. Those people get made whole. Not everybody has the XRP to bet. Not everybody is in a position to lose a bunch of XRP to somebody else. And I want to make sure that those people, I've been really blessed in my life. And if I have enough, I'll be able to make sure that they are made whole. We got Alcatraz for you. They say, what are your thoughts on lifetime annuities with an inflation kicker for someone I want to provide monthly income? Yeah, I think that that's a good way to do it. Those are products that we offer through Azure Legacy, which is our insurance company. If you guys do want to go look at a term policy that's convertible into a whole life policy or annuities or any other insurance products, you can get a time with our team. You just go to azurelegacy.com, and Carl or another one of our advisors over there will be happy to work with you to figure out what the best options are for you and your family. We're with tons of carriers. We also have private placement life insurance and some other unique insurance products like Meanwhile's Bitcoin life insurance that we work with. Jason Labatowitz over there, we've had him on the show. If you guys didn't get to check that out. So anyway, I think, if you're going to look to pay somebody monthly income over their lifetime with the inflation kicker, I think that's a good rider to have on there to make sure that that's meaningful, right? Here in the near future, we might get that UBI from old Big Daddy Trump talking about $2,000 a month for people that are under a certain income level. Everybody has their feelings about UBI, but I do think that would help a lot of people cover their monthly expenses. We got Kamal. They said, do you think that Venezuela conflict will hike oil prices, starting the reverse carry trade? It could be any one of the three. I think it could be Russia. I think it could be Venezuela. And I also think it could still be there in the Middle East with the Strait of Hormuz. If they were to shut that down or even threaten to shut that down, you could see a big spike in oil. And it doesn't need to be a realized spike. It doesn't even have to last that long. It just needs to move the price enough that, you know, the inflation rate jumps there in Japan and they have to be reactionary to it. So yeah, Venezuela could definitely be the catalyst. We've got this person here is XTAT1C. They say, Jake, Carbon One in the mastermind. Awesome. Glad to have you there in the mastermind group with us. Do I need to set up my LLC? Potentially, you know, again, we see most people start to set up an LLC somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in portfolio value. So if you have that much, I think it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and establish an LLC in Wyoming. If you want to work with attorneys there, you can reach out to them. We have some on our Rolodex, or you can work with us. We've made the pricing much, well, not much cheaper, but cheaper than the attorneys there in Wyoming are going to charge you for the same stuff. We provide you EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, registered agent, banking memorandum, alongside the operating agreement. Most of the attorneys there in Wyoming, if they set up the LLC correctly as a holding company that manages alternative investments with a sleeve for digital assets, which is how we structure it, not as a crypto trading company. So you're able to take advantage of long-term capital gains. We set it up as a single member LLC so that when you contribute the assets to the entity in exchange for the equity, there's no taxable event. This person's asked if it's $4,000. That's what we list on our website. But if you use the code 50 off 50 OFF DAG that's 50 OFF DAG they get you everything for $2,000 end to end with the corporate veil maintenance program to make sure that your creditor protection there in Wyoming stays intact. There's charging order protection. And as long as you maintain your corporate veil, your meeting minutes, your board resolutions, all the stuff that you need to do for corporate compliance, if somebody does sue you, they can't take your assets. It provides really good creditor protection. So he's also asked if I set aside XRP in wallets for each of my kids, if I include theirs in my LLC, can I split back out later when they're older? What's the best way to set this up? I would gift it to them at the small amount that it is today. I would separate it out on cold wallets. So if it's 50 XRP, 100 XRP, 1,000 XRP, 10,000 XRP, whatever you're gifting them, as long as it's below the $19,000 annual gift tax limit, then you can take advantage of that. And you would just gift it to your kids now, and I would separate it out onto its own ledger. And I would not include those as contributions into your LLC. I would have them separate. If you did want them to be in the LLC and institutional custody later on, you could exchange that XRP that you gifted them for equity in your LLC, and then you would have minority shareholders. And the benefit of that would be that you could get a 409A valuation done on the LLC and get a reduction in the valuation of the corporation so that you could gift more of the assets out of your taxable estate. I know I'm probably talking over like most people's heads with that. It's a good thing. So the way that you want to do it is you want to gift it to them now while it's less than $19,000 on its own separate cold wallet. You can set it aside, write their name on it. You and mom, you know, you and your wife or spouse could set those aside for them. Doesn't matter their age. And then later on, if it makes sense to, you could contribute it back to the LLC in exchange for a portion of the equity in that corporation. So that's the way that I would handle that if you did want to run that route. And again, if you want to work with us to set up the LLC, we would love to work with you. Just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50 off 50 OFF DAG LLC. All right, we got Zach, my man. He says, Jake, timing is insane. XRP ETFs, ISO goes live this week. Any official word if banks launch crypto rails too? ETF liquidity lines up perfectly. Well, when I was at Swell, just a few weeks ago, we had, not we, but Ripple had the NASDAQ, the president of NASDAQ, up there with Monica Long, and they talked about the back end of the stock market, DTCC using crypto to settle the back end of trades and reconcile those on chain. Pretty interesting use case. I wonder who could have developed that with them. I've been talking about it for a long time. And if you go check out the Domino theory, R3 did develop Project Ion with the DTCC, and they finalized that project in August of 2022. R3's primary settlement mechanism is, you guessed it, XRP. So when we do see enough, liquidity in XRP, it is the only thing until the Clarity Act's passed that has legal clarity here in the U.S. as not a security outside of Bitcoin. So the only viable option in that instance for instant settlement would be, you guessed it, XRP. We do have those Solana ETFs though, so they could be pumping, liquidity into Solana. I don't think it's going to be too long before the Clarity Act gets passed. Worst case scenario, I think sometime in Q1. If it doesn't get passed this year, we did have Patrick talk to Brad on the second day of Swell, who is Trump's head of crypto. And he talked about, them pushing the Clarity Act along as fast as they could. But, now that we have seen, the government shutdown and midterms, I do think that it's possible that the Clarity Act could get passed later on. Now, I have seen some stuff today that says it's going to get passed before Thanksgiving. So I'm not holding my breath, but I am hopeful that we are going to see that legislation for digital assets and crypto. But I think, again, if things were to unwind before that happened to be passed, there's really only one option. And that's why all my eggs are in that basket. We've got L, they say, told NDFO consult, Carbon members will still pay a high price increase after $10 cutoff when they qualify to onboard DWP. Thought membership now would avoid that. Did I misunderstand? So DFO, DWP, all my corporations are separate. The mastermind is separate of everything else. Now, you are locked in at the prices for the mastermind. So if you get in now before $10 XRP, all of the price points to $25 for social, $100 for Carbon 1, $250 for Carbon 2, all those you're grandfathered in, they're not going to change. Post price appreciation for the mastermind, all of those prices go way up. And it's invite only. We are locking it down. So if you want to get in, I think you might be close to the cutoff here with way that things are looking for global macroeconomics. But yeah, if you are in the mastermind, you are locked in for those prices. The prices for the other corporations, especially for DWP, it's an SEC registered RIA. It's registered with FINRA and the SEC. We can't, and I talked about this in the town hall today, I can't have discriminatory pricing based on anything. So if I said, white males over 45, you get first dibs, people would be very upset about that. I can't discriminate like that. And we can't discriminate using the mastermind. It's an uncorrelated business. However, I am going to figure out how we can prioritize people from the mastermind for DWP. So if you want to know what's going on and stay ahead of the curve when things first come out, before we make announcements publicly, we will always put those out in the mastermind before we put them out anywhere else. And I think that might be the way that I would be able to do that. So yes, we always, loyalty is a big thing for me. It's one of my core values and principles. And people that take care of us, we take care of them. So if you want to be in what I think is the best mastermind out there for really anything, the culture that's there is impeccable. We got over 10,000 people there in the mastermind that all have aligned interests. They want to better themselves. They want better for their friends and family. They want financial education. They want access to things that you're not going to get anywhere else. If that sounds cool to you and you want to check it out, you can go to beyondbroke.com and use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO gets you the first month for $2, whether that is Carbon 1 or social. All right, we'll go ahead and run on down here. We got Victor, Mr. Ramirez. He says, legend. What's up, dude? I've been hearing a lot that ISO 200222 is just messaging. Does XRP have to be a higher price for them to use it by November 22nd? it will be uncorrelated. So ISO 20022 is a precursor or something that's required before the implementation of the implementation of instant settlement. So you have to standardize the messaging between all the counterparties to be able to settle things real time. Makes sense, because otherwise you're reconciling a bunch of data and you won't be able to settle transactions. So could it coincide with that? Absolutely, but it would need to be a much higher price in order to be utilized in that capacity. So does it, start beforehand? Does it come in after? It could do either of those things. It could be mutually exclusive, or it could coincide with it. I will say this: it's been interesting to see how adamant many people at Ripple are, especially Matt Hamilton, that ISO is completely independent of XRP. Why are you so hard up against that? It's a flag to me that maybe there's something more to it. Or again, maybe that's just how people are and they want to seem superior and they want you to know that they know things that you don't. I don't know. But it could coincide. But yeah, for it to be used on the day that launches, it would definitely need to be a much higher price in order to be able to settle those transactions at scale for Swift. Johnny Cruz, he says, "Hey Jake, are we still going up by end of year or Q1 2026? I am more bullish today than I have ever been on XRP. I will tell you that. So if that means anything to you, all of those timelines I've been talking about, I still feel very confident in those. We got Jam Faction. They say legend. It was Sarah and I's first year dating anniversary this past week, and we loved dreaming up a price appreciation life together with you and your help and guidance. Thanks, brother, for the amazing journey." Thank you. I really enjoyed meeting you guys. Here's the deal, right? Like, if you don't think this stuff is going to happen, then you're not going to make any plans for it. If you don't make any plans for it, when it happens, you're going to be caught off guard. So my job is to help you dream a little bit, because if you're not doing that, then you don't know what to do when things happen, because I'm pretty confident they're going to. So hopefully you have used the last couple years, to make sure that you've educated yourself and thought through everything and positioned yourself to be able to take full advantage of everything that happens. We'll have to see if we're right here on the precipice of it or not. I think we are. But I'm excited for people, and I hope you guys have taken this time to really put your best foot forward and understand where this is going and prepare yourself. And hopefully, it's really cool that you have gone on the ride with me, and I've encouraged you to do that. If there's a lot of stuff that goes on that's, not so fun with everything that I deal with, but it's really fulfilling when people send messages like that. So thank you. And if I can make an impact on somebody's life, that's the whole point of being out here and doing this. We got William. He says, "Great to listen to you. Good info. Got my LLC started today. Awesome, dude. I'm with you. What are your thoughts on iTrust Capital Roth IRA? Thanks again." iTrust has a good product. We also do IRAs. They're digital wealth partners. We hold that in institutional custody with Anchorage, and we should be rolling out an additional product for IRAs here in the near future. We've got, "Hey Jake, this person says 10-cent flare and 5-cent ZBEC, both by Christmas. What are the odds in your opinion?" I don't know on either one of those. No idea. And that's why I don't own them. I've made, we had Hugo on the show. I just talked to Hugo at Swell. ZBEC, I've made a video about that. I think that their niche is very interesting. I think that they'll be acquired or used in some capacity. I'm not as bullish on those as some other people, and maybe I'm just way off base and don't know what I'm talking about. That's quite possible. I think that they will have adoption over the long term, But for the price points that you mentioned here, that's some pretty substantial increase in a very short period of time without much catalyst. Now, all tides rise, or all boats rise with the rising tide. That's what they say, right? So if they're connected to XRP in some capacity, it's likely that they will see appreciation alongside XRP when it does go up in value. So if you're looking at it through that lens, then it's quite possible. I just don't know how likely that is, because I don't. Again, this is where I spend most of my time over here, looking and analyzing this type of stuff. We are looking at other assets, networks. I've got a couple people that have reached out that invested in some early ICOs on some very interesting projects, and we are consulting with them to be able to manage their wealth over the long term, that have also worked out. Athleta being one of those. Really excited for the folks that got in early on that one. We'll see how everything plays out for that, but it looks good so far. And then I met with another group today that has a very interesting concept around, I won't talk about that, but anyway, they should do pretty well too. And it's interesting to see all of the other people that are making money in crypto and how we can work with them. We got Tom M. He says, "Hey Jake, questions onboarding, rolling over a 401k Bitcoin IRA. Will my XRP roll over as XRP or dollars?" We can do it in kind, Tom. That's one of the benefits of rolling your IRA over to us, is we can take it in kind. We don't have to liquidate it to cash, move cash over and rebuy. John Hines says, "Jake, next time you're in Cali, hit me up so we can work out and play golf." People say take profits, but then others like yourself say hold and borrow against. What the hell do you recommend? Take my initial. You never go broke taking profits. Okay. Everybody has a different situation. And depending on what your goals are with your investment, it may be appropriate for you to sell everything. It may be appropriate for you to sell nothing. You're going to have lots of tools and options at your disposal. And that's the whole thing about what I've created over the last 2 years here with Digital Wealth Partners, is you have the ability to generate returns on your XRP, and you have the ability to borrow against it. Now, are the terms super awesome? No. But they're getting better. It would be like taking a loan against real estate in the 80s. Interest rates are a little higher, around 13 to 15% against XRP, and the LTV is around 40 to 60%. Now, I will say this. We had about $35 million out in loans on 10/10 when the liquidation occurred, and no XRP was called away because we don't use smart contracts. We have counterparties that we work with and tri-party agreements. And when there are margin calls or capital calls, they're willing to work with us and our clients to be able to meet those over a little bit longer time frame. So working with us, you're going to get a lot better advantage on that stuff than you would inside of a smart contract or with some of the other counterparties like Nexo, who will also just liquidate you. We give you some optionality and a longer time frame to cure things if there's a problem. So, I personally just plan on holding and generating income off of my asset, off my XRP, and then using that to subsidize lifestyle or other investments I want to make, or to continue to scale the companies that we have, and make sure that we're providing as much value as we can for people. But those are my goals, right? So I don't know if you want to pay your house off. I don't know if you want to take your family on vacations or travel the world. I don't know if you want to leave a legacy. I don't know if you want to just, have a great lifestyle. All of those things are accomplishable in multiple different ways. And I would suggest speaking with a financial advisor or a certified financial planner. Tom Teal at Digital Wealth Partners is our main CFP. So if you want to have a conversation with him, you just book a time and then he can help walk you through all the options that you have in order to be able to accomplish the goals that you would have for your family. We've got Honest Aim. What's up, man? He says, "Mr. Legacy, how are you, sir? Hi to the tea lady. Thanks for the great Laughlin seminar with access to experts and professionals needed to protect our generational wealth. The one thing is least known about the Rockefeller. What is the one thing least known about the Rockefeller method? Least known. I'm going to say probably the insurance component on infinite banking. A lot of people have heard that. but they may not understand what it is and how you're able to leverage life insurance here in the US as a financial product to be able to protect your wealth over the long term while getting access to liquidity while you are still alive. We do that again at Azure Legacy. Carl is our CEO over there, along with the other advisors that we have at the firm. And you know, if you're interested in that, if you want to be able to establish a whole life policy or a universal, an IUL, an ILET, there's lots of things that they do over there at Azure Legacy that we help people with, and we also get the lines of credit against, you know, their life insurance policy. Working on things to be able to involve crypto in life insurance. That's not really a thing today, but I do think it will be in the very near future, and we are on the cutting edge when it comes to that as well. So thank you guys for coming to the event. Really excited to see y'all there and all the support. Appreciate you. You guys are everything. Thank y'all so much. Michael, he says, what's up, legend? What's up, my dude? Thanks for everything that you do. Can I get some CPA contacts for my crypto taxes? Also, will my crypto exchange send me tax forms to file? They will, Michael. You should get a 1099 DA from all of the exchanges that you've held your assets on or made trades on this year in 2025. They should be sending that out to you in early January. Excuse me. So you should get that in early January, and you should be able to hand that to your CPA. Now, if you've used multiple exchanges and multiple wallets and done some staking and yield farming and like a bunch of other stuff, I would suggest Count on Sheep. They're one of our partners. The team over there can help you with more of the exotic things that are done in crypto. But if you need just a full list of CPAs that are familiar with digital assets and how to be able to file taxes with those, we would love to work with you. You just email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io. And we can get you a full list of the 7 different CPAs that we currently work with. And many of them charge different fees, just depends on where you're at. But I'm sure that they would love to work with you. A lot of them are already at capacity, which is interesting. We got Anthony D. He says, I'm a DWP client, Mastermind Carbon One. How long before I get an advisor? It's been almost 2 weeks since funding the Anchorage account. P.S. My son looking for an internship this summer, taking finance in college. Any chance you guys will take summer interns? We sure are. We actually did an internship last summer, and we took on 6 interns from the University of Boston and a couple other universities at Digital Wealth Partners and DFO, our Digital Family Office. And we would love to have your son come check it out. We need to set up some like application process for that. We don't currently have anything that's formal. So if you just want to email us, I would probably send it to DFO. I would go to info@digitalwealthpartners.net, info@digitalwealthpartners.net, and he can apply there. They'll do an interview with him, but I'm sure, you know, if he's sharp and wants to get access to this stuff, we are the only people that do what we do in the whole world. So if he wants a front row seat to all the innovation and craziness that we have to deal with, this is a good spot to be. As far as time frame and getting an advisor, they are backed up right now. I appreciate your patience and grace. You know, as we continue to scale, we've, you know, after we lowered the minimum to 50,000, we've seen a pretty large influx of people that have onboarded. We've scaled up the advisor team. We hired, we had 5 people start 3 weeks ago, 3 people start last week, and then 2 more people start today. So a total of 10 advisors that we've hired that have now started over there at Digital Wealth Partners to continue to scale up and meet demand of our clients. And as they get trained up and start taking clients, I'm sure that you will get assigned to one of them. And again, thank you for your patience, and I apologize for the delay. Johnny Lakers, my man, he says, hola, what's up, Jake? Would you lean more toward a final run up in crypto before Bitcoin, including Bitcoin before the reverse carry trade, or lean more toward reverse carry trade imminent before any run up? It's kind of up in the air. I think we're looking for a bounce or a retrace on Bitcoin. If it already has topped, that tends to be what comes at this point in the cycle, is a retrace on Bitcoin, and that is when we will see the Bitcoin dominance fall. So now that we've got a $90,000 Bitcoin, I don't know where that price point is, where it's going to turn back around, but it could definitely happen, or it could fall off a cliff here. Just depends. I wish, I mean, I do have a crystal ball, but it doesn't show me everything. I just know what the long-term end game is. I don't know, the volatility between here and there. So your guess is as good as mine. Again, I'm just going to continue to dollar cost average and what I think is going to win out in the end, and that's where I'm placing my bets. We've got, not sure how to say the name on this one, but I appreciate the super chat. They said, Jake, wife is joining me for the first time. Your team is completing our LLC and onboarding us. Since you cannot give financial advice, here's a medical question. Can you tell my wife I am sane, of sound mind, without any mental defects? I can. We all have this crazy disorder. So I would say this. My wife also thinks I'm out there and crazy on this stuff. She works in the business with us and answers a lot of the questions on social media, and she still isn't quite convinced, even though there's overwhelming evidence, in my opinion, that I will be vindicated. But she said she will celebrate at a $7 XRP. That's when she says she'll celebrate. Your husband's not crazy. I mean, or you could call him crazy. Crazy in my mind is somebody that sees something that other people can't see. Sometimes that's not so good, because they are mentally unstable and seeing things that aren't really there. But I spent a year and a half. I woke up every single day trying to figure out how I was wrong about XRP, and I couldn't figure it out. And at some point, you look at everything, and you're like, all right, well, it's a foregone conclusion. And that's kind of how I've operated the last really 3 years, is that this is going to happen. And I have built an entire business around all of it taking place. Now, we do have some family offices that we service and work with today. It's not like the end of the world if this doesn't happen for me and my business. However, we've taken a very large bet that it is going to happen and built many things and put them in place to make sure that we are prepared for when it does. So if that gives you any confidence that your husband is not crazy, I hope that's the case. The only other thing that I would say that might give you some solace would be, I'm sure you use payment apps, PayPal, Venmo, Cash App. I have to have the same one as you to send you money today. Just like in the early days of the internet, you had to have the same email address to send somebody else an email. AOL, Yahoo, whatever it was, Hotmail. There wasn't an email protocol that allowed for interoperability and settlement of data between those email providers. There is today. And that's what this stuff is. At its core, it just allows for interoperability between payment providers to be able to settle transactions real time. And when you use those payment apps, the other thing that happens is you get two options to be able to move the money to your bank account. If you get paid on PayPal, you can move it instantly for a fee, or you can wait 2 or 3 days for it to settle, because that's how long it actually takes to settle to a bank account. And they pre-fund it and they charge you a fee for the risk associated with that. When all of this takes place and all this gets implemented, you'll be able to do instant for free, or instant for a very, very small fee in comparison to waiting 2 or 3 days. Those options will go away, and you'll be able to send money from Cash App to Venmo and Zelle to PayPal. All of them will be interoperable, and it'll be real-time payments, and you'll get paid much faster, which the velocity of money will pick up, and a lot of good things will happen. So again, I don't think your husband's crazy. I think he's sound of mind, but it's yet to be seen if we're all crazy or not. But I don't think we're going to be. I think there's a saying, it's genius and madness are next door neighbors, and sometimes they borrow each other's shirt. It's part of this deal, I think. Daniel, he says, hey, Jake, keep being an outstanding human. Thank you, man. What are your thoughts on World Liberty Finance? Seems like they have a bit of advantage with the Trumps. I would agree. I think World Liberty Finance Token is going to be around. I just don't know what role it's going to play. But with Trump's involvement, I do think that you're correct that it is going to be viable over the long term. We got Frank, Mr. Frank Kerr. He says, Mr. Claver, you the man. Appreciate you, dude. Thank you guys for taking time out of your Monday night to come hang out with me and ask good questions. I get a lot of fulfillment from this, and I wouldn't rather be anywhere else in the whole world. So thank you. And if you do like this, please like, subscribe, share this with somebody. It does help the channel grow. And again, appreciate all the fantastic questions. He says, hey, I have been hearing decoupling some more. What is decoupling and what does that mean to XRP holders? This is a good question. So right now, most, if not all, of the crypto market moves in tandem with Bitcoin. And the reason for that is that 90% of the market's traded by bots. They will take out long positions on Bitcoin or leveraged long positions on Bitcoin. And when there's a big move down in Bitcoin, they have to cover those calls. And so they have to liquidate positions in other cryptos to be able to cover that difference, because they'll take leverage out on the long on Bitcoin. And that's why all of the market moves down in tandem with one another. Some coins are affected more than other ones. Decoupling would mean that the assets would be uncorrelated. So if XRP was going up while Bitcoin was going down, that would be decoupling. They would not be moving in the same direction. And that would be good for the XRP holder. Unless Bitcoin was going up and XRP was going down, that would be bad. So anyway, hopefully that explains what decoupling is for you. Let's see here. This person says, Bob, Mr. Bob Dylan, he says, your conviction in XRP is unmatched. Is this because of off-the-record conversations you've had with particular individuals? The way that I like to talk about this, Bob, is I feel like an Indian on the campground, and there are some shamans in the teepee, and they come out of the teepee every once in a while, and I am really blessed and grateful to have the ability to occasionally speak with them. And it's never been just one of these people that has said this is going to happen. It's been an amalgamation of different hints and gold nuggets that they've dropped in conversations that I've had with them, and also visceral reactions when I've asked them specific questions to see what their response would be. Many of them end up being like Larry Fink when he was asked about the Bitcoin ETF or the XRP ETF. He's like, can't talk about that. And that tells you all you really need to know, that there's NDAs in place. And then there's been other people that have been nice enough to share additional information outside of that in confidence with me that allows me to, have the high level of conviction that I do. So short answer to your question is, yeah. This person is Wake the Fork Up. Thank you for the 589 super chat. They say XRP price will be sub $1 after reverse carry trade. Please explain how they will choose it with virtually no liquidity. We know it can't do what's needed as a price. I don't know. There's going to be a bunch of ETFs that roll out here in the very near future. I'm sure you've heard about that. Much of the OTC supply and the dark pool supply for XRP will be eaten up in a very short period of time. What's then available will only be what's available on exchanges. And if exchanges also happen to be going illiquid because of a situation with Bitcoin or Tether or the reverse carry trade, they're going to need another source of liquidity. If you want to go read the Shane Ellis theory, this illustrates this really well. He talks about Bitfinex going illiquid and utilizing XRP to facilitate transactions instead of Tether. And that's what pushes it to $589 in his theory, the Shane Ellis theory. Now, if you had that play out alongside all the other exchanges and these ETFs and other mechanisms driving, soaking up XRP, driving demand for XRP with not much supply left on the market. And again, we probably perpetuate this because of the XRP community. We all know that prices are going to be much higher. So we're not selling. We're not selling at these low prices. We're waiting until stuff gets up there. And so all of that XRP is locked up. It's not available on the market. And that's where I think people get tripped up, is they look at circulating supply or total supply. They don't realize that the available supply is not that much. It's really only a couple billion XRP at this point. So that's how they're going to drive the price to a high level with the amount of demand and a low supply to be able to get it to have enough liquidity in it to be able to then facilitate these transactions at scale for these global markets and pull us out of a really bad situation that would play out if they didn't have that solution in the background. What I found. I know what I found. 07 says, Jake, we got the LLC, awesome, and the bank account set up through Laughlin, very cool. Wanted to know if we have the threshold of assets for Anchorage custody. What way can we prove if we are officially an accredited investor? My CPA asked this. So to work with Digital Wealth Partners, you're right on point. You have the LLC set up, so that's number one. You have to have a corporation, a trust, or an IRA. The assets have to be in some wrapper. Because Anchorage won't work with individuals. They work with other enterprises. It's B2B. And that's why we help people establish a corporation to be able to hold their assets and work with Digital Wealth Partners. But after that, you do need at least 50,000 XRP, which is a little over $100,000 today with current value of XRP. Like 120, probably, a little bit more than that maybe, to work with Digital Wealth Partners. And then if you don't have at least 50,000 XRP, you can have at least $500,000 in total portfolio value. So that gets you into institutional custody. If you want to work with us on the funds to be able to generate returns on your XRP, and we can go into how that works if you guys want to, you do need to be accredited. So in the US, there's 3 ways to be accredited, but 2 mainly. One is through income. If you're single, you need to have made at least $200,000 a year for the past 2 years on your tax returns. If you're married, it's $300,000 for the past 2 years on your tax returns. Or you have at least $1 million in total net worth outside of your equity in your home. So you can't count the equity in your home, has to be in addition to that. So if you have at least $1 million in crypto, you would absolutely be accredited and can work with us. So those are the ways. Now, as far as the funds, how we generate returns. People ask me this all the time, so we'll talk through it. And I think I've seen a couple of people over here on TikTok. So what we do is we aggregate that. We have a hedge fund that's an investment company. DWP is registered as an investment company, and it's the manager of the hedge fund. You contribute your assets to the hedge fund. You sign a subscription agreement, you do all the stuff, you put them up as a capital asset inside that. And that's held in institutional custody. That's then reflected with our counterparty off exchange and out of custody. So we mitigate counterparty risk. If something bad happens, they go bankrupt, something happens, we're not a creditor. Your assets are not, they can't take your assets because they're on our side of the fence. So we mitigate counterparty risk. They get reflected, they're mirrored. We get a line of credit or a line of margin against that mirrored value. And that's what they trade in a market neutral strategy. These market neutral strategies have 5 and 6 year track records. They've produced anywhere between 20 and 40% per year for the past 5 and 6 years. Now, you're like, all right, well, if they've produced that much, and that's actually really like, those are really good returns. And I wouldn't believe it myself if we didn't have like full audits of this stuff done by KPMG and Deloitte, like the top 4 audit firms. Okay. The tear sheets are awesome on these funds that we have. We get an 80% line of margin against the reflected XRP. And then we only ever trade 40 to 60% of that line of margin. And the reason we do that is to mitigate volatility risk. When we had the crash on 1010, no XRP got called away. and nothing bad happened. It worked perfect. Like, and if you could ever have like, a test of the way that we've structured this to make sure that there wasn't going to be a problem, that was it. So we lost no XRP because that's our number one rule. Our number one rule is don't lose XRP. Number two rule is refer to rule number one. So we structured it to where we've mitigated all counterparty risk and we've mitigated volatility risk. The only risk in the funds, and this is a risk, is that they lose money over the quarter in their strategy, which has happened 2 times in their history. They have lost money over the quarter. Now, that doesn't mean they're going to lose money over the year. They've made anywhere between 20 and 40% per year. So you could still have a negative quarter and still make 20% a year. It's not a guaranteed return on these funds. They are not yield. They are returns, and they are paid out quarterly to mitigate the risk of a loss, but they will potentially still occur. So doing the best we can with what we got. This is the only regulated way to be able to generate returns on your XRP here in the US, and that is how it's structured. If you want to learn more about those things, you can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners. Go to the Contact Us form over there at digitalwealthpartners.net. Mikey Mike, he says, do you believe that the BIS will make XRP a tier 1 asset? Yes, I do. And I hear that Japan may be going to 1.7 for their yen. What do you think? Thanks. You're a legend. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for the super chat, Mikey Mike. So the 10-year yield is already over 1.7 there on the JPY and their 10-year bond. So yeah, it's moving quickly to the upside. They're going to have to step in and do something here. And if oil were to exacerbate everything, you can bet your biscuits they're going to be stepping in the near future and raising interest rates. And then they can blame something else. It won't be their fault, right? They need a scapegoat. They need something to point to. And that's why I think they're going to use oil to do that. And Jim Rickard said so. So a long time ago, he did an interview in 2014 where he laid this whole thing out to the US government. And if you knew what was going to happen and you could orchestrate it, you would want to play it into your advantage. Here we are 10 years later, 11 years later. And looks like that's exactly what might happen. We've got Hiroshi. He says, since the Bank of Japan has no meeting this month, do you think they make an early announcement ahead of schedule? Thanks for saying Nikkei right today. I appreciate you correcting me. You know, I am from the South, and I am not always the best at enunciating or pronouncing things in the right manner. So appreciate the correction on stuff. Yeah, it's quite possible that they could come out and all of these emergency meetings are when things happen for the central banks. Every time the Fed has dropped rates significantly, it's been an emergency meeting. Same thing with international central banks. It's an emergency meeting. They come out and they do things. So I do think that it will be one of those that causes the reverse carry trade to unwind. They will announce that they're raising interest rates aggressively, and off we will go. We got Jocko. They say, hey, Jake, shout out from South Africa, friends. Very cool, dude. I need an update price prediction for 2025. But man, I have serious money on the line here, and I'm stressing. I need a little extra hopium. Please, winks are welcome. In JC we trust. Have a good day. As I stated earlier, I have never been more bullish than I am right now on XRP with everything that's in place that I think will play out in the very near future. So, oh my gosh. Desmo, thank you for these super chats. I cannot. Wow. Thank you. They say, Mr. Claver, Mastermind DWP, hats off to the tea lady. I hope you and your family are well. Thanks for all the information that you brought to all of us here and in the mastermind. We all want lower interest rate loans on XRP. Yeah, I'm still beating that drum. Thanks for all that you've done and are doing and will do. Also, Tom Teal is my advisor, and he's fantastic. Thank you, Desmo. That's very much, the kind words mean a lot. And again, like the super chat, I thank you very, 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 very much. I'm super glad to see that, you got Tom. I think Tom is fantastic. He takes great care of our clients. We have a ton of great advisors over there. They go above and beyond for everybody. Tom is definitely one of those. And I'm going to continue to push on lower interest rates for your loans against your XRP. If we can get one of our partners to just sign an agreement, things could be really, really great in the very near future. We got Shane. He says, Shane Jenny from the Beyond Broke Mastermind. Jake, the gun show legend. Appreciate you. How many HBAR do you estimate will, without spilling the veins, will we need to participate and earn yield in DCA? I don't know on the HBAR. We're going to have to look at the product and the minimum that we're going to bring to market with that. We should have institutional custody for HBAR. We should have had it months ago. Everything takes longer than I want it to. And I'm sure you guys too, obviously, patience is a virtue. But the other things that we have, it's a $50,000 minimum. So, but with appreciation, it's not going to be a number of HBAR, it'll be a dollar value that we roll out. So with appreciation on HBAR, I don't think it's going to take much. Rock Corp, how are you, sir? He says, Mr. Claver, the legend. Out of curiosity, once XRP goes to multiple digits, what will we talk about next? The next big crypto, stocks, bodybuilding? That's a good question. I've thought about that a lot. We'll continue to bring you guys different opportunities here. We'll probably talk about HBAR. We're going to talk about hash and provenance. Talk about Cardano. We'll talk about Midnight. There'll always be different things going on in digital assets that I'm sure that we'll continue to discuss. Other opportunities that we'll bring to market and talk to you guys about. Raw Pal does a good job of this. He talks about macro, and he also talks about different projects that he sits on the board of, and also things that he thinks are interesting in crypto. We'll continue to run analysis as we scale Digital Wealth Partners. We'll have analysts, and we'll put out newsletters and other things about additional cryptos. And then we'll talk about other investments too, private equity. We can talk about real estate. We can talk about private credit, other innovative technologies and companies that are disrupting different spaces. And we'll dabble in the bodybuilding and golf and, sports and some other stuff here. I don't spend a whole lot of time on that. When people ask, happy to answer things. In the mastermind, we have a whole channel about health and supplements. I was a bodybuilder for 10 years. So we go into some of that over there, talk about longevity, talk about real wealth, right? So there's really only like 3 things that people sell. Okay. And I'm just, I'm going to give it to you guys. Health, wealth, and relationships. You can almost take every product that's out there back to one of those things. And the people that do well tend to blend those. The wealthiest people in the world focus on all 3. They spend time with loved ones. They make time for that. They make time to make sure that they stay healthy. They eat well. But they also have the money and luxury of being able to do that. And I think a lot of people with their investments in digital assets, in particular XRP, are going to be able to step into that situation in their life in the not too distant future. So I'm sure that will become some of the focus of this channel. But we will continue to talk about innovative products that we're developing and bringing to market. We'll talk about, some of the trips and things that we're going to put together for the mastermind. That's the other cool part about that community is you're in there with other people that are going to benefit from this. And they'll be able to go take trips with you. You'll be able to say, hey, we're all going to saddle up and go rent a yacht in Monaco. Who wants to go? Who wants to go for a vacation to Turkey? Who wants to get my hairline done? Private jet between here and there. There'll be a lot of that for people that are participating in the mastermind. So if that sounds cool to you, you want to be part of that group, we would love to have you. We are going to lock it down at $10. Like it's done, invite only, much higher prices than what it is today. If you want to lock it in, you go to Digital Wealth Partners. Oh, just kidding. Beyond Broke, beyondbroke.com is for the mastermind. And you can use the code BeyondBroke, all capitalized, the number 1. And then MO gets you the first month for $2, and it locks you in at the prices that we have today. We have over 10,000 people there in that community that are all going to be celebrating and doing fun stuff together on the other side of price appreciation. Oh no, the phone has died. So TikTok's gone. Sorry, TikTok. Mike Mitchell, he says, I'm currently participating in the growth. Is it possible to sell XRP that paid 309 for and repurchase it at the current lower price? If it's in the growth fund, you would have to take a withdrawal. And we can do that. That's not a problem. You would just let your advisor know that you want to withdraw some XRP to be able to lock in some capital losses. It does take a little while to unwind that. They're going to ask that you keep it in there longer. I'm going to tell you that if you push a little bit, we can get it out of there for you. They're not going to like that I told you that. But I don't work at Digital Wealth Partners. Just own it. And I want to make sure that people are taken care of. So we can figure that out. We will be moving to a tokenized fund over the long term. Thank you, Alan, for the super chat. Appreciate you, sir. I don't see your question, but if you do post it, I will try to grab it. All right. I got off topic there, and then I don't know what I was saying. Capitalize on the losses. I actually made a post about this earlier today, and I want to touch on this. So wash rule doesn't apply for securities. There's still some debate about, depends on your CPA, okay, if you can sell an ETF that the underlying asset is a crypto, because wash rule doesn't currently apply to crypto. At least the IRS hasn't explicitly stated it. Now, it could be implied that it does, and most conservative CPAs are going to tell you, yes, it does. But again, if you have a progressive CPA, they would probably be willing to risk it for the biscuit with you on an audit that, you know, crypto, again, because it's not explicitly stated, is not succumb to the wash rule. What's the wash rule? Well, if you're down on your position since you bought it, like this gentleman, and you wanted to lock in those capital losses, you could sell it and then buy right back. Now, you're going to have to pay the fees for those transactions, but you'd be able to lock in those capital losses, which are good to be able to offset capital gains. Inside of an ETF, this is a little more edgy, okay? So again, you're going to have a CPA that's really progressive to be able to get away with this one. But if you sold the leveraged ETFs, which you might be down on right now if you're in XXRP or IXRP, both of those are leveraged ETFs that are down right now, and you wanted to sell that position and then buy back into the spot ETF for Canary, well, you could do that and you'd be able to lock in those capital losses. Again, that's questionable because an ETF is a structured product. If the underlying asset isn't a security, it's a gray area. XRP, we know, isn't a security. So again, you're going to need a progressive CPA to get this one, but I think you can do it if you have that opportunity. And you have, again, you want to make sure you're working with the right people. Jacob Jones, he says, I know I can't with you just yet, but who could I work with and get an LLC holding 1,000 XRP? We can do it for you, my man. I don't think that that's the best use of your funds at the current time. I would wait till price appreciation, and then you'll have more than enough money to be able to set up an LLC and structure yourself correctly and do all that stuff. I just, the cost to benefit with 1,000 XRP is probably not there. You'd be better off just spending the money to buy more crypto, in my personal opinion. Again, not financial advice. Again, we work with people most of the time to set up an LLC when they're somewhere between $50,000 and $80,000 in total portfolio value across all of their crypto holdings. This person says, Nico says, Jake, the legend, please give us some hopium. We need it. And I need help with my mastermind account. Can't get access on the Discord. If you want to email us, my man, at info@beyondbroke.com, info@beyondbroke.com. Our team there would love to be able to help you get connected to the Discord. I know that it's not super intuitive and it is a bit cumbersome, but we want to get you in there so that you can listen to town halls and get access to all the cool stuff that we have for the community there. We provide people a ton of value. I always want people to feel like they would pay more for whatever services we're providing. So thank you for joining the mastermind. Excited to have you in there. And I, again, am very, very bullish. Even more bullish than I've ever been. Like, I don't know how to explain to you guys how close we are to all this playing out. We got Alan. He says, hey, Jake, thanks for all that you do in the space. I'm 25 years old. Congrats, dude. You're here at a fantastic time. And I own enough XRP to drastically change my situation. What would be the best method to generate income, no kids or debt? Dude, you're crushing it. 25 years old, invested in some of the best stuff that you're ever going to see in your lifetime. If you had enough to work with us, we would love to work with you. You need at least 50,000 XRP. And then we can work with you over there at Digital Wealth Partners to generate returns on your XRP if you're accredited. Now, if you're not accredited, there are some other options out there. There's options for all kinds of things, for other institutional custody, for other stuff. I think we do it the best out of everybody, and we do it legally. But if you wanted to look at Doppler Finance or Midas, both of those have DeFi protocols for XRP to be able to pay yield. Excuse me. Doppler does it through Copper as their custodian. And I think XLR is just on chain. They lock it on chain. There's smart contracts, which is a little bit different. There's some additional risk there. They're not insured. And if you're a US resident, you're geo-fenced, you shouldn't be participating. But if you use, a VPN, you probably can. I don't know that they have KYC on those. They might. Actually, I don't think they do. Flare is another one. That's another DeFi protocol that you could participate in. It's a bit messier to get it staked over there and do it, but you can absolutely do it. You're a sharp young kid. You can probably figure it out. Again, I'm not advocating for any of these. You just asked for options, and so I'm just telling you what's out there to be able to generate income on the XRP. I would, if I were in your spot, because I'm going to try to remember what it was like. It wasn't that long ago. It was only 9 years ago that I was 25. I'd probably just hold it. I'd just wait. Whatever amount you have. I mean, you got a long time horizon. And if you are able to just hold it, not lose it, you're going to be able to set yourself up for your whole life and then multiple generations, in my opinion. So the risk to generate returns on it today might not even be worth it. I think we have the best solution on the market. And like I stated earlier, there's still a possibility that we can lose a small amount of XRP in the funds. And it's at the risk of, them underperforming for 1 quarter, which is possible. We've mitigated all counterparty risk. It's insured, and, we've mitigated the volatility risk. But there's still some risk to it. Now, in the very near future, we will have a product that is no risk and yield and guaranteed. So, we have actually a couple options that we're looking at for that. So I would probably wait till then, to be honest with you. And especially on the other side of price appreciation, we're going to have a bunch more options for people post price appreciation. That I don't think you're going to have them anywhere else. I could be wrong about that. I think there will be DATs and ETFs. We've got the one launching tomorrow. This is a 3% dividend. But unless you are a very large institution, you cannot make contributions in kind to the ETFs. So, today we're really the only licensed option at Digital Wealth Partners. We are an hour and 20 minutes in. So if you haven't posted your super chat, just hold off. I'm not going to get to it. I'm going to go to the bottom and work my way up. I don't want people to pay money and not get their question answered. And actually, still have 2 right here that I have to read. I forgot about these from the tea lady left me these, and then she's going to be mad at me if I don't read them. So Ryan Sweeney says, I understand how market cap doesn't apply to price of XRP, but can you explain how, if the market cap is larger than all the money in the world, how we can cash out our investments if there isn't enough money available. I actually answered this one on the last live, but I will touch on it again. Not everybody's going to be cashing out at the same time. And the whole point of the XRPL is that it is a DEX. It's interchangeable with anything else. So any issued asset on the XRPL is exchangeable for XRP. And you'll be able to cash out into any stable coin that you wanted to at that time when you want to take it out. So irrespective of total market cap and the amount of liquidity being provided. Again, I know that people are used to stocks, right? So if all the stocks got sold at the same time, if it was worth more than all the money in the world, there wouldn't be enough money to cash everybody out. I get that. This is very different. It is not a stock. And then this one, my wife said this, I normally just do super chats at this point because so many people pay money and but she said I need to read this one. So she said, long shot, hoping Jake sees this. This is Flying Ham 8742. Love your videos, very informative. Went on a deep dive and would love to see your thoughts on how, instead of oil surge, the current repo freeze possibility here in the US could start the domino theory. Like to bring it to the super chat, but may miss the live and have to rewatch. Keep up the good work, man. Thank you for that. So the repo freeze, so it's also a liquidity crisis, right? So the banks don't have enough liquidity overnight to be able to meet their obligations, and they start to crumble. That wouldn't unwind the reverse carry trade unless we aggressively lower interest rates. But even then, there's still going to be other things that are performing well. It's going to have to be Japan aggressively raising interest rates. And we've already seen this. We saw that the last two Fed cycles or the Fed meetings, they've lowered interest rates by 25 basis points. And we still haven't seen the reverse carry trade unwind. So unless we aggressively lower interest rates, you're not going to see a rotation out of US Treasuries into Japanese bonds. And that's what the reverse carry trade is going to be when it unwinds. So I guess to your point, that could happen if we started to see banks fail here in the US because there was a liquidity crisis with repo. The Fed would have to lower interest rates aggressively and then cause the reverse carry trade to unwind from our side. Again, I think that's highly unlikely. I don't think the US government wants to be the aggressor or the one that causes the reverse carry trade to unwind. Otherwise, they would have already lowered interest rates aggressively because we need it to happen here in the US. We have inflation and the job numbers are ticking up, and the Fed's mandate is to maintain jobs and 2% inflation rate. And both of those things are getting unwieldy at this point. So they're slowly lowering interest rates, but to actually keep pace with what's happening, they need to be more aggressive. But if they do that, it would unwind things. So again, I don't think it's going to be the US that causes this. And I don't think Japan wants to be the ones to do it either. I think they need a scapegoat. And that's why I continually point to oil for that catalyst. Mr. DR, they say, hello, Jake. Just wondering how close we are to getting yield on our LLC. Afraid XRP will go way up. We will be paying with my XRP. Hope you're close. Thank you as always. We are very close. We are literally one signature away. So if you can call them and tell them to do it, I'm making calls every day to try to get them to do it. And it's coming around. We just, again, nothing moves as fast as I want it to. Very close, though. Wayne, Mr. Wayne, they say Trump has set out to achieve $2 gasoline. He rarely fails. So will that mean lower oil prices? I would agree with you. Most of the time when Trump says he's going to do something, he comes through. And I think that's why so many people do advocate for him, even though he may say things at times that people don't agree with. He is a man of his word in most circumstances. However, he doesn't control global gas prices. Now, he could absolutely open up oil fields here in the US and supplement what we would be missing if there were an oil crisis somewhere else with supply in order to be able to maintain price levels for gasoline here in the US. And I think they're already starting to do that. You're already starting to see them open pipelines and do other things to be able to drill in other areas, to be able to supply that here domestically so that we're not so dependent on foreign suppliers for the oil. The only thing that we need to happen is oil spike in yen. I don't care what it does in US dollars. I need it to spike in yen. So if it's a trade route that's specific to Japan that gets cut off and not to the US, we would be unscathed. And Japan would still be have that problem. So it doesn't need to be, a global oil situation, although I do think it will be. The other problem that we run into at a $2 oil price or gas price, excuse me, they're capping wells. They're laying off workers. We really need gasoline to be around 250, 260, and somewhere north of $70 a barrel to supply enough demand for, and like oil companies want to make money. And the cost to run the oil derricks and do all of their business in order to get the oil out of the ground to produce the gas and make the money doesn't make sense at a $2 per gallon gas price. They're just going to cap the wells here and hold it in the ground and wait till they can make more money on it. So even though Trump does want that to come down, I think he also wants it to go up. Just he wants it to go down. He can say whatever he wants publicly, but you want job stability for people, and there are a lot of people that work in the oil field that live off of that, and right now are being furloughed. So we'll have to see. But yeah, I think he might be wrong, at least in the short term, on that one. We got Rock Hawk, Jayhawk. What's up, my man? He says, it's Rock Chalk Jayhawk, excuse me. Thanks for all of the knowledge you've shared. I've been able to pass a lot of what you've seeded along, and I think we're going to make a lot of our friends and family very happy. To the moon. Very cool, man. I didn't get to see the Kansas game this weekend. Did you guys see that UT lost to Georgia? Disheartening. I'm normally not a college football guy, but I went and played golf the other day and talked to one of our clients, and he's big into UT, and so he was telling me about the game. Just in case says, hey Jake, tell me, what are the odds, chances, possibilities that we finish the year in this range with XRP at $2 to $3 entering 2026? 0. There is a 0% chance that we finish it in this range. You probably didn't expect me to say that. Lone Wolf, thank you for the super chat, my man. I don't see your question, but if I can find it, I will tag it. If you are enjoying this, please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share it with somebody else that you think would find it valuable. We've got Cortex 7. Say, hey Jake, you said in the past that 25 million would be the minimum for the multifamily office. When will you guys change your price for working with you, and will you have products for us smaller bags? I am doing everything that I can to advance different options to be able to work with people at all price levels and for any amount. It's not a tomorrow thing. It's not a next week thing. It could be a Q1 thing. But I think by Q1, you're probably going to be in a much different situation also. I am, and my team is doing everything we can to streamline systems and processes and scale up our operations and our team in order to meet the imminent demand that we feel is going to be it's right here on the horizon. So I know a lot of people are, wanting to get access to what we've created. I get that. We want to be able to provide it for everybody. Unfortunately, with the economics of how things work, the thresholds that we have it at are really kind of break even. We really don't make. We're barely in the black. Managing, over $1 billion at this point, and we're barely in the black. And that is because I want to make this as economical as we can for people. We've run multiple specials for people that have larger amounts. We've done everything that we can to be able to provide value and create enough demand and get things done on our side so that we can work with the partners that we've been able to curate for everything that we've created, and continue to do so. And we continue to aggregate attention from really good partners. And so with that, we'll continue to democratize access to stuff over time. But it'll likely be Q1. And like I've stated before, for the wealth management side, it's only 50,000 XRP, or at least $500,000 in total portfolio value in order to work with them over there. And if you do need the LLC to work with them at Digital Wealth Partners, again, it's only B2B. You can just use the code 50OFF50OFFDAG-LLC. That's 50OFFDAG-LLC at digitalfamilyoffice.io. It gets you everything end to end for the LLC to manage your digital assets for $2,000. What the Chuck says, legend. What's up, man? Hey, Jake, if at iTrust with a Roth IRA, what will be options after appreciation for income access before 59.5? Not a whole lot, unfortunately. And that's why I liquidated my IRA. But you're in a Roth. I would, especially if you're in your 50s, I would just let it ride. There's a lot of things around qualified accounts that make it very difficult for you to be able to take advantage of them prior to 59.5. And they do that for a reason, especially for a Roth. So what we can do is, if we're able to generate returns, we can't margin it. So a lot of the ways that we currently utilize things with our partners to be able to generate returns are not possible inside of an IRA. We can use a trading algorithm to compound returns or create cash returns inside of an IRA with an actively managed trading strategy, which is what we're rolling out here in the near future. And then you'll be able to generate cash returns and additional assets that you could put in a side pot. You can't borrow against the principal that's been put into that qualified account. But if there's additional returns that are put into a side pot, you can borrow against that. So, we will orchestrate that and work through the logistics on it and all the compliance. But that would be really the only way to be able to access liquidity prior to the 59.5 without any fees being assessed, unfortunately. Already about an hour and a half in. I'm going to wrap it up here in about 15 minutes or so. And I'm definitely not going to get to all the super chats. I'm going to answer these two. Then I'm going to go all the way to the bottom and work my way back up. If I don't get to you, we would love to have you over there in the mastermind. You can just join there and put your super chat over there in the Q&A channel, and myself or one of the moderators will get to it and answer it for you. And the moderators are going to answer it pretty much the same way I would. This person's asked, hi, Jake. I appreciate your expertise. Coinbase keeps asking me to verify my tax status. If I set up an LLC, does that change my response or the need to respond? Thank you. Coinbase is atrocious to set up a corporate account with. It is a ton of questions. It's a minimum of 4 days. Most time it takes weeks. Kraken is much easier to set up a corporate account with, and so is Uphold. Coinbase is just very difficult. They're great for individuals, not so great for LLCs. As far as your tax status goes, I don't know what type of account you establish. I don't know if it's a corporate account or an individual account. So that would determine that. And without more information, it'd be difficult for me to provide my expertise, unfortunately. If it's an individual account, setting up an LLC would not change your tax status because it's passed through, and especially if you're going to, elect an S corp election, you just tax as income, and you just still get the same 1099 DA. Alan, 1111 super chat, very nice. Make wish. He says, thank you, Jake, for what you do. Question, would it be more adventurous to max out a Roth IRA with XRP? I don't know if he meant adventurous or advantageous. Max out your Roth IRA with XRP and have access to it in 4 years, or to buy and hold. Thanks. I don't know what your personal income is. I don't know where you live. I don't know what your lifestyle is. Without having a lot more context, it would be difficult for me to even put myself in a position to give you what I would do in that situation. Which sounds like a cop-out, right? Like, and I don't like being that way. I would rather just give you a straight answer. Our advisors would do a really good job with this. I'm going to take a shot at it, though.